Good luck, Harry Potter.
Well, cover me with eggs and flour and bake me for 40 minutes.
Hi. Hello there, if you're listening to us here. I don't know whether you are. I'm hoping someone is, otherwise this is even more ridiculous than it would seem. But welcome to a brand new podcast from the Byte Back Media Network, and I've nearly screwed that line up straight away. But this is Bav and Fluff's SCREENMASTERS. What is it? What does that mean? Well, I'm the Bav from the title, Bavf,
I'm the
I
Fluff.
shall be known.
I'm the Fluff, by the way.
Indeed,
in
over
case.
there is the Fluff. And Fluff, what is SCREENMASTERS?
SCREENMASTERS. So basically, I think we put this together with the intent of going through, on a bi-weekly basis. However often we decide to do this, depending on the popularity, I suppose, whether anybody decides to listen, was to go through, films, TV shows, what we enjoy, what we don't, see what the rest of the world thinks of our particular likes and dislikes. Yeah.
I think that's it. We've got some things we want to talk about, and we think there are probably other people out there that want to talk about it as well, and SCREENMASTERS encapsulates that for us. It's anything to do with TV or films. Now, as this is the first episode, we have decided to abandon what will become the standard format. And the standard format will be I will bring either a film or television question or a point or series that I want us to discuss and go through and see whether we like it or not, and then hopefully put it out there to you guys. And we will alternate between myself coming up with the questions and, of course, Fluffy.
So yeah, we'll be throwing different questions, different supposed ideas as to, different contents, good TV shows, bad TV shows, good movies, bad movies. The questions over particular types, could be superhero films, could be action films, could be dramas, could be anything.
Exactly.
You'll have to tune in and find out what we discuss.
Exactly. So to start us off this week, we decided that we would simply bring a list of 5 TV shows, 5 films that either we're very keen on or we've watched in the last week, to be honest, as we, both working men, and myself, I'm a father of 2, so time is limited somewhat. So
my time is less limited.
It is
much
less limited. Just a smidge less limited, you bastard. Just so you're aware, we are allowed to do the swears.
Oh, okay, we're swearing.
Apart from the see you next Tuesday.
Okay,
We
can't,
can't do that one.
Yeah.
We can't do that one. So apparently in America, you know what? I listened to something the other day. I think it was Chris Van Vliet, who's a wrestling thing. Anyway, that's another podcast that you can listen to called Turnbuckle, which will be coming soon. But anyway, he said that it's actually one step down from the N-word.
Oh, is it?
Apparently
well,
over there.
I don't particularly
don't
like
do that
either.
one.
I don't particularly like
don't
either
do that
of those,
one.
so
I wasn't aiming for a PG product, so
no. I think we'll realm it into
swears.
the realm of we're good. We'll keep it clean most of the time.
So let's kick off with films. So go on then. You tell me. What film do you want to talk to me about? Have you brought me a favourite film? I have got my favourite film of all time here to discuss, but you start with whatever you want.
So, okay, look, I mean, obviously, coming up with these lists is not easy in this day and age with so many films out there, so many films, and being the geeks that we are, there are a lot that we love. There's a lot of franchises that we love.
Yep.
Obviously big on the the Marvel MCU.
That's going to be a question for another day.
I didn't doubt that.
Definitely.
But yeah, so I mean, I threw a few together. Now these are films which are a little bit close to the heart. So I think we'll take it in turns. I'll state one.
You start,
man.
You start.
And then you can
kick us
state
off.
one. So I'm going to go with perhaps the oldest and kind of traditional in a respect.
Okay.
Which is Star Wars.
Star Wars.
First one.
Just the first one. Just taking that one on its own.
I mean, a load of people, they're going to argue, Empire's better and all this, but it's the one that kind of hooked me when I was a kid. I'd put on VHS. Yeah, we're old enough to know what a VHS was.
Yeah, look it up if anyone's young enough listening to this.
And I still
Go
have,
and look up a
those original
VHS. It'll
VHS.
be mentioned again, so
We'll
you'll need to know.
not throw those VHS away. I've still got the originals, even the special editions as well. But yeah, no, it was one of those films that you watch it for the first time when you're a kid. And there's just a little special something about it. You can't dispute it, even to this day and age. I mean, look at the the franchise they built around it, the continued criticism of all of the latest ones, and they always compare it back to the first.
Yeah.
In every capacity.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the thing. It's the one film that you can kind of put on, Saturday TV on terrestrial TV or something like that. You know that if Star Wars is on, millions of people are going to watch it.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a reason that people
certainly
still
that
watch
used to be the case. Whether that still is now, I don't know. But
yeah,
I remember having multiple Christmases with Return of the Jedi on in the background and such. The funny thing is, I didn't actually watch Star Wars till I was 16. I think that was the first time I watched Star Wars.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, the first time I saw Star Wars was when I was 16. And I borrowed the videos, like you say, the remasters. So I've never actually seen the original one.
Oh, you should.
Which is crazy. But yeah, I watched those, and that like you say, I was hooked from the start. And even though you're right, people will argue. Personally, I'm an Empire guy myself.
Sure, I get it.
I get why people go Jedi.
Yeah.
But I prefer Empire. I think I've got a slight soft spot for an unhappy ending.
Sure.
And you wouldn't have either of those without A New Hope.
Precisely.
So you always have to.
And that's it. Yeah, that's what it boils down to. Thankfully, I was lucky enough. When I was younger, I had access to a very, very large library of VHS. I was very, very lucky in that respect. So I managed to watch so many films when I was younger. So many films. So I had that luxury of being able to watch a lot of stuff over a short period of time.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that was one of the ones. That was always the kind of film that you go back to time and time again. It was like that feel-good film. Like I say, I could put that film on now, and I could just switch off to the world for an hour and a half. Done.
Yeah. It is a quintessential film. I would always. It like you say, it's one of those ones I'm never against. Anyone could suggest putting that film on, and I go, yeah, all right.
And it's everything that's gone since, like we say, Empire, Return of the Jedi, even the the new films which have come out. I mean, not everybody's necessarily partial to them. I'm sure we'll get to that in a future podcast. But even the other stuff, Rogue One, literally bookends, coming straight into it.
I do think that's my favourite of the sort of non-canon ones.
Sure, yeah, no, I mean, I still love it.
I know
I went
it is
in
canon.
skeptically to
Please don't get on my back about it being canon. I know it's canon. I apologise, I misspoke.
But even the other stuff, like I was a huge fan of the Star Wars Rebel series, as we've discussed off podcast before, and again that fits in really, really well within the realm. And again, there's little bits in that teeing things up, and all the little cameos which would lead to that. And again, it built on something which even to this day is such a huge, massive franchise.
Absolutely.
I mean, look at the Disney the Disney park expansion recently. I mean, Jesus, that's huge. There's like millions of dollars that they've built into a particular section of the theme park, all dedicated to Star Wars, and that would not have been there if it hadn't been for Star Wars: The New Hope.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, you've always got to consider the first in any great franchise or trilogy or anything.
So go on.
That's a good one.
Yeah, come on. And so your first one?
So we'll start with my favourite of all time. My favourite film of all time is The Italian Job.
You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off.
Ah, yeah, I expected that.
1969, I hasten to add, not the 2003.
Oh, really?
With Mark Wahlberg.
Well, I'm surprised by that.
God, Jesus. No, we'll go with the original. Thank you. I watched that film so much when I was a kid. Mum and Dad used to record it to me. They used to tell me it was Christmas time. I don't know anyone older than me who can remember. Apparently, it was on at Christmas a lot. So they'd record it one year, and then the tale they tell me is that by the next year it had run out. It had worn out the VHS because I'd rewatched it so many times.
Goodness me.
And we've all been through that. The VHS wearing out. It's normally at that porn bit in the films when you used to have them.
Just forward rewind.
That's it.
Okay,
that one
Cue
bit.
that tape up.
That was the only other. The VHS Italian Job one is the only one I've had that didn't die due to that illness. It was just genuinely because I watched the whole thing and loved it.
Yeah.
I still think it's about the only film where you can find what should be like the hardest 6 degrees of separation you could think of.
Yeah.
Noel Coward to Benny Hill.
Yeah.
Like that should be impossible.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
You know what?
Course,
They're both in the same
Yeah.
film, and it is the classic, quintessential British caper. You know, because it's a heist.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
it's a caper, and it just epitomises Britain of the 60s era, and I just think
how
it's
many films
amazing.
now try to recreate the magic of those kind of heists?
absolutely.
And few and far between do we find films which actually embrace that whole culture and actually get it. That's the difference. Like they can put big stars together and flashy FX and this, that, and the other, but at the end of the day, it's the heart and soul of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it was never one of my top ones. I know you've got an affinity for cars and whatnot.
Yeah,
more so
but
than
the
myself.
Mini, my love for the Mini is born out of that film.
Yeah.
That's where it comes from. But yeah, no, I very rarely do I meet people who even know it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very rare one. They know the quotes though.
Yeah,
you said someone
yeah.
you only you're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off. They'd know.
As you have a lovely picture up in your living room.
Indeed, we're recording this in my dining room. We'll call it. It's a mess, is what it is. But
well, you've got 2 kids, so
Again,
it's
2
understandable.
children,
There's
happens.
toys galore around. A lot of Lego.
I feel we're diverting. Let's pull it back on topic then. So, Italian Job is mine.
Okay, so
over to you for
back
your
over to
second
my.
pick.
Okay, so my second one, I'm gonna go with Wall-E.
Wall-E,
Wall-E.
beautiful.
Now, the reason that I've gone for Wall-E is because it holds a special place in my heart for a number of reasons. One, it was love of Pixar films, don't get me wrong, but it was the first one that actually tugged at my heartstrings to that degree. That I literally just was involved in that film, completely 100% involved in that film, and I was heartbroken when it ended because I didn't want that story to end. It's one of those Pixar films where there will never be a sequel. There's no need for a sequel for it because it doesn't warrant it at all. No. But the visuals of that were just fantastic. The humor was fantastic. The fact that the majority of the film is about a little robot who can say quite literally 2 words.
Yeah.
Wall-E and Eva.
Yeah.
And obviously, as you well know, that there's a reason that it also holds a special place in my heart.
Indeed.
Is because your daughter, my goddaughter, is named Eva.
Yeah.
And anytime I see that film and Eva's name is said, that immediately comes to mind. So that's always going to have a little place in my heart. But again, I think it's everybody could go Toy Story, or they could go their own individual Pixar film, which I get, and everybody has their own choice. Again, I'm a huge fan of Ratatouille. Huge fan of Ratatouille.
Well, we can discuss that one.
And we could discuss that at another point. Yeah, well, I don't want to diverge off topic. I'm sure we'll bring up Pixar films at a later point. But yeah, Wall-E for me was just that one where complete and utter escapism. You literally could put that film on and just, again, for an hour and a half, just switch off from the world and just be fully engrossed.
Yeah, absolutely.
It starts off so beautifully, ends so well, little bits of music in there as well, and yeah, it just brings the heart and soul of what Pixar is as well for me.
Absolutely, I totally agree. Yes, as you say, we're aware, by the way, that the character in Wall-E is actually called Eve.
Yes,
not
we
Eva,
we
and
are.
it is
yes.
Wall-E's mispronunciation almost of her name that inspired my daughter's name, because he does say Eva rather than Eve.
Yes.
And it's just the way he says it.
Yes.
So please, I mean, I keep thinking there's a comment section, but there kind of isn't
well,
for the minute. But, we are going to have a
you
Facebook page and stuff, so there will be ways of contacting us. But as I say, this is the first one. So bear with us on that if you are listening. But yeah, so I'm just very careful of.
Yeah.
Going,
No. Yeah. No. Trust me. We are as big a critics as anybody else out there. We sit after films and we tear them to shreds.
Oh yeah.
But again, that's one of the reasons I look forward to discussing Ratatouille at one point, because there's the little bit towards the end that they talk about that kind of stuff. But again, we'll discuss that at a later point. But that's it. That's the great thing about films like Wall-E, because there are little nuances there that people would go, oh well, it's this. Well, yeah, I know that it's that, but like I say, I hear Eva and I immediately think of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Same here. Obviously, she's my daughter, and that is where the name came from. But Yeah, I love it, and as you say, it's quintessential Pixar
Yeah.
because you fall in love with a character within the first 20 minutes,
Yep.
and there's no dialogue
Yep.
there to other than pre-recorded stuff that he hits as he's sorting through the
Yeah, of
garbage
course.
or
Yeah, yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Other than that, there is no actual proper dialogue,
Nope.
you know. And yet you fall in love with that character. It's something that I've always loved about Nick Park and Aardman.
Yeah.
And the same way that I've always loved Gromit.
Sure.
And he's never said a word.
Yep.
He's never said a bloody word.
Yep.
I love that dog.
Yep.
I'd do anything for him.
Yeah, all the little nuances within the beginning, like you say, he's just like finding a hubcap. He finds keys to a car, blips it, and just the little comedy moment.
Puts the bra on,
finds a ring box with a diamond ring in it, throws the ring away, keeps the box. All those little things, and that is quintessential for me.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely spot on. So that's my one. Go on, over to you now. Come on, we're gonna I'm sure we're burning through time at this point.
We are absolutely burning through time. I was worried we weren't going to have enough to talk about, but I tell you what, at this stage, I'm probably thinking we should do the TV ones as a second episode and make the first episode just 5 movies.
Okay,
and do the second episode as TV, but we'll see, because I think we're going to need a break by the time we're finished with the movie.
Sure.
Let's see how we go. So, all right. I don't know how much you're aware of this franchise, but as people listening will come to see, and as Fluffy already knows, I'm a big fan of horror films. I apologise there, I burped. And so this week I randomly caught one night Leprechaun Return.
This old Lex, he played one. He played Pogo on his lunch.
Okay.
Which is, I discovered today, actually, a TV movie.
Yes.
But was on Sky Cinema from 2018. And you know what? It's great. It's really good because it actually gets tropes and then turns them on its head.
Okay.
And I won't say too much because what this has actually made me want to do is it made me go and look at the Leprechaun series.
Sure.
For 2 reasons. I know Warwick Davis was the original Leprechaun.
Yes. Yeah.
And I know that the film prior to this, Hornswoggle played the Leprechaun.
Correct.
Now, Hornswoggle, again, wrestling reference. Myself and Fluff are wrestling fans. You may have to deal with some references here and there, but he is a wrestler. So it intrigued me to go and look back. Do you know how many films there have been in this franchise?
I'm gonna say at least a dozen, maybe more.
Well, this was the 8th.
Okay,
so you're not far off.
Yeah. I mean,
it only started in 1994, to be fair,
sure.
which is later than a lot of the rest of them.
Well, that's the thing. I suppose as we know, I'm not a huge horror fan at all.
No.
It's kind of the one genre that really doesn't tickle my fancy. I've tried. But yeah, it's not something that I find myself engrossed with.
I'm going to go through these at some point. And I'm going to bring them to the table because I've got to read you some of the titles.
Shoot.
We start out fairly basic.
Yeah, sure.
So we go Leprechaun, Leprechaun 2,
Sure.
Leprechaun 3.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, of course.
Leprechaun 4, In Space.
Leprechaun in Space.
Leprechaun in Space.
Right. Okay.
Okay. For the 5th installment, Leprechaun in the Hood.
Oh, in the Hood.
In the Hood.
Okay, so we go from space to in the Hood. Yep. I was expecting like Leprechaun on Mars or something.
No. I thought so too. No, they go to the Hood, which is the logical opposite of space.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah.
In space, where do we go next?
Yeah, okay.
The Hood.
Is the next one the jungle?
So, and it's even, Da Hood as well.
Yeah, of course it would be.
6th one is Back to the Hood.
Oh, Back to the Hood.
Yeah,
okay, right, okay, so yeah.
The 7th one then drops off and is just called Origins. That's the one that Hornswoggle's in.
Sure, yeah.
And then 8 is Returns. And yeah, I'd actually written down a really funny bit here. No, I am going to go with it. So here's an example of how it subverts the tropes you're expecting, and that's why I like it. Don't get me wrong, it's not ever a good film, but it does make itself so bad it's good because.
Oh, we love it. You got to love a film that does that. Yeah, of course.
And so, for example, the scene at the end of a horror movie where the 2 survivors are sort of cuddling each other and the coppers are next to them.
Yeah.
And the coppers will go like, "Oh, come on, I'll give you a ride back to town," and they'll be like, "No, we'll be okay, knowing he's gone."
Yeah.
And they sort of walk off camera.
And then suddenly it appears in the background.
No, just walk off camera, credits roll. And we finish the film. Like
okay, yeah.
Scream 3.
I suppose you get one or the other. You get the happy-ish, and then you get the other one where it's like, suddenly it
then
comes
you have
out of the
final jump.
Yeah.
But of course, since post-credit sequences, that bit tends to come post-credit sequences now. But yeah, there's that sort of trope of walking off into the distance, and they're all happy. And so, but it doesn't accept the realism of the situation. You like a lot of the time this is out in the woods, so they're just going to walk back to town on their own?
Yeah.
Dangerous,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
Just been attacked.
Yeah.
Shouldn't do that. But
Bit of a
what they
walk.
do in the film is they go, oh yeah, okay, and the cop says, hey, do you want to ride back to town? And they go, no, it's fine. We'll be okay. It's over now. And they sort of take 2 steps and they go, actually, it's quite a long way. Yeah, go on, we'll have a lift. And they turn around and go back to the car. And I was like, yeah, that's fucking brilliant. And like I say, that's just one I wrote down. That is right at the dead end of the film.
Yeah.
But there are so many moments like that as it goes through that just made me go, you know what? Actually, I like this.
Yeah.
And
Like you say,
it's
subverting
made
the
me wonder
tropes.
whether
Yeah,
the
yeah.
previous ones are as funny as that, because the deaths in it.
Well, there you go.
are some
You've
ridiculous
got
deaths,
yourself a new horror franchise to
but-
play your way
8
through.
episodes apparently.
8
Ugh,
episodes. I'm sure
God.
you'll love every
My
one.
next, the next one when you come back to me is the series that I'm currently working on.
Okay.
So we'll get to that in a second.
Stop drinking while you're podcasting, Pete.
Yeah, I need to stop doing that. Let's put that over. So that was my second choice.
Yeah.
Over to you for your third.
Okay, so I'm gonna save my favourite one until last, because I could literally rant and rave about the final one till the cows come home. So I'm gonna cover one which I've recently watched on Netflix, and I mentioned to you briefly earlier. Now this is one which I didn't think I was going to enjoy, because I'll confess I'm not a huge Paul Rudd fan. He's had some up and downs, with a career. But a new one, I say whether it's new or not, I've just been playing through Netflix films. As we was discussing earlier, there's so much on Netflix at times that you get lost. Like you suddenly find a series and you just get ingrained in that. So I went through a load of stuff, and one that I found, and I think it was a little gem, was called The Fundamentals of Caring.
My child has a unique sense of humour.
You know anything? Could you call the Make-A-Wish Foundation and tell them I want a blowjob from Katy Perry?
And it was.
I've heard of it, but I've not.
Yeah,
not seen
it surprisingly it actually tickled me, because again it's not just all American. There's it's a British kid in here as well. So it's basically Paul Rudd looking after this British kid who's wheelchair bound, and it starts off quite dramedy, and then as soon as they kind of meet, you see the comedy, and it is that kind of nuances of a bit of American humour, British humour as well. And it's about a little road trip that they go on. But you know what? It was one of those feel-good films, and you don't find those often enough, I find.
No.
And for me, it was really, really enjoyable. There's other people in there, Selena Gomez, who I've not really seen much in, because I don't, I'm not a teenage girl or boy. So I don't watch any of those kind of, god-awful films, as we might put them. So I don't really have much significance for her. But again, I thought she was very good in the role she played, and I just really enjoyed the film. It was very heartwarming in the places that it needed to be, very funny in the places that it needed to be. So it was a little gem that I found on Netflix, and I've recommended it to a couple of people I work with, and they've each come back and kind of said, that's great, thank you very much. I'm well known for giving people great suggestions for TV shows and films.
Yes, we are the educators of our workplace.
Oh yes, very much so. That was one that I'd recommend to people. If you've got a Netflix account, give it a watch. It's not too long. It's an independent film as well. It's always good to watch the independents, not always about the shiny blockbuster films. I really found something special about it.
Nice.
So I will go back and watch it again at a later point once I've put it.
I'm always on the lookout for a film like that. Like you say, I film like I know we both love Garden State, for example.
Yeah,
that's a beautiful little feel-good sort of
film.
Since I
watched
that
as
a lot
well,
of great coming-of-age sort of dramas that are like that. No, that's good. I might go and give that a watch, actually.
Yeah. So like I say, it's one of those little gems on Netflix I found. But I think I don't know whether it was just one of those ones that Netflix bought, as they buy up everything in this day and age.
Yep.
But yeah, I'd give it a shot. It's enjoyable. So
nice. Let's see. Always. I was just about to say, leave us a comment and let us know. I don't know, post on the Facebook page or email us or something. I don't know. We'll sort it out. We'll get there.
Yeah, you're the social media darling.
I hate social media.
So do I. I mean, I don't even have a Facebook account anymore. I delete the damn thing.
We've been told not that there are big bosses higher ups and stuff, but we have got to have some sort of social media presence.
I'll leave that down to you. Right? You're the tech boy.
Apparently, it's how you do it these days. Can't you just ring someone? Ring the entire phone book just to go, hi, we've got a podcast, do you want to listen to it?
Yeah, I'm old school. I like having a conversation. I'm not much texter and stuff like this. No.
That's why, even though we don't text very often.
No, We don't need to.
And it's why, like, we watch wrestling, but I don't. Sometimes I don't want to text you about the wrestling because I'm like, I want to talk to him about it. But anyway, Divergence. That's not the next film.
I should hope not. I should ruddy well hope not. Jesus Christ, no.
Awful.
That'd be a series that we really want to avoid.
My next one doesn't need a lot of time to discuss it. To be fair, it's Annabelle.
Just take whatever you want. Just get out.
Which is a film from 2014 and is the first spin-off from the Conjuring universe. So that is where I'm working my way through at the minute. Because I've seen both the first Conjuring films and enjoyed them very much. I thought they were very good. So I've then watched that, and it's it's not great. It's really not.
So you're actually going for a film you didn't even enjoy?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, you can't enjoy them all.
Well, that's true. Yeah. But I mean, I thought we were going through ones that we did enjoy. Instead of,
but when we're going to go back and watch films and stuff because we want to discuss a topic or something.
Yeah, of course.
They're not all good.
No.
They're not all good.
No.
And
yeah, Iron Man 2
really
and 3. To say
that was really bad. But I am looking forward to the next one, which is Annabelle Creation, which is actually a prequel to that one.
Okay.
Which in itself is a prequel to The Conjuring.
Jesus.
Yeah, don't worry, I've got a whole episode lined up on film timelines. Fast and Furious, that's my favourite.
Oh, yeah, that's all over the goddamn place.
Hilarious.
Hilarious indeed.
This is very similar, though. This actually has a sequence, one 10-minute sequence at the beginning of a film that you need to watch out of order.
Oh, what?
To make sense.
See, this is why I'm glad I'm not a horror film fan, because oh my god.
But yeah, that's not great, but I'm looking forward to the next one. So
okay.
Apparently the next one is so good that it actually makes this one better because it's a prequel. So I was like, oh, cool, okay, that's pretty cool.
You've got the really shitty one, and then you've got the one which is better than the shitty one.
Yeah,
so at least
but
the improved.
It's directed by the guy who directed Shazam. And I really like that guy.
You know what? You see, funny.
So I was like, hey, I'll go with him. So,
see, now segue is straight. Oddly enough, segued into my other film of late that I've watched is Shazam.
Say my name so my powers may flow through you.
But I don't know your name, sir.
Shazam.
Wait, for real?
Now, I was actually going to be a bit dubious about whether I was going to enjoy this or not.
Yep.
No joke. We've discussed many times the disaster that has been the DC Universe films.
Yeah, absolutely.
Superman, Batman, Superman, whatever the hell it was.
It's a whole other thing, isn't it?
Oh my god, just ugh. No, I didn't have a problem with Wonder Woman. I enjoyed Wonder Woman. I didn't give it the fanfare that everybody else did. While I appreciate
I feel it fell down
comes
at
from.
the end. It was the typical boss. The CGI crap boss.
Sure.
It's just bullshit, man. I hate it.
Yeah. Aquaman, no joke. A lot of people have told me to stay clear of it.
Really?
It's on my watch list, but it's not high on my watch list. Whereas Shazam, now I was a big fan of Zach Levi from ages ago because he did TV series called Chuck, which I was really enjoyed way back in the day. So I kind of knew the guy anyway, so I was kind of looking forward to it. The trailer made it a little bit more enjoyable. I didn't have a chance to go and see it at the cinema, sadly. But yeah, so I got around to finally watching it the other day and absolutely adored it. It was one of those escapisms, and there is there's the comparisons to Big, and I'm sure there's one little scene within the movie where they come across the piano.
I said exactly the same thing. They come across the piano, and he does chopsticks for a second, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
And that is absolutely
precisely.
That's
but again, you got great performance of Mark Strong. I mean, the guy is just fantastic. Even if he did play Sinestro as well, but we won't go on to DC. That's one we're not even going to discuss.
We can't ever
Jesus
discuss
Christ.
Green
Oh my good god. But yeah, you know what? I really enjoyed it as a heartwarming, completely different to all the DC stuff, and even so much as the Marvel stuff. It was a lot more family friendly. Also, it was a bit scary in places with the 7 Deadly Sins and all that kind of stuff. They were a little bit gorier than I was expecting. I'll confess. But the family dynamic, I'm not going to give too much away because I don't want I want people to go and watch it, and I want people to enjoy it. There's obviously spoilers, but there's the family dynamic of that, which comes part towards the end, and I love that. Again, we've both read the comic books for that. Again, we're huge comic book readers. Bav and I, watching the change that has gone from Captain Marvel as we know him now to Shazam, because can't say the M word.
Yeah, you can't say Captain Marvel anymore.
Can't say the M word anymore.
Not in DC.
But yeah, so and having read the recent run of that as well, yeah, I've enjoyed the family dynamic of that as well, and I really look forward to that franchise continuing.
Absolutely, and
it's one of the
it's
few
funny,
that I
like you
think
say, it
is
is a DC. I believe they consider it part of the DCEU.
Yeah,
but the only way you'd know is the fact that he goes to a toy store and chucks some Batman merch at him.
That's it. Yeah, they're constantly referring Superman and Batman. I mean, they're the two big guys, and in many respects, I kind of want them to move away from those two individuals. I want them to embrace the fact that there's a lot more DC characters out there that are brilliant and are fun-loving. And this was absolutely fun-loving film, 100%. It was not your usual, okay, I'm going to have superpowers and do this, that, and the other. And it kind of subverts that. It kind of goes, you know what, I'm going to be an idiot and I'm just going to blast lightning out my hands and try and get some money.
But I like that,
that was it. It's
true to what a kid would do.
Exactly, that was it.
He's still in his head. He's still an 11-year-old boy or whatever it is, 11, 12, whatever.
Yeah, heartily enjoyed it, I've got to say.
It's brilliant.
It's, again, we've had the very serious tones of, like, Endgame of late, and Infinity War before that, and I mean Captain Marvel was good. I enjoyed the film. On second watching, I enjoyed it more than I did on the first. But again, a lot more serious. Marvel got a lot more serious as of late. So this goes back to a fun-loving kid film, which is exactly what comic books are at the heart.
I think it was a PG as well.
May well have been. PG or a 12A.
I was thinking about showing it to the children. But no, you're right. And I actually watched because I was looking into the director as part of the Annabelle creation thing. He posted a really good video called "The Problem Solving of Filmmaking."
Yes, I watched this. Yes.
I found that fascinating. He basically points out a sequence where they had to mask out blue people making making Shazam fly.
Get your superheroes right, V. Come on.
By the
You're
time
embarrassing yourself. You're embarrassing yourself now.
I have read comic books. And by the time they got to the end, they realised they'd left all the crew in, and they had to get rid of the crew, but they didn't have time to paint them out, so they just put bags in front of them and a bucket and made them look like janitors and shoppers.
So no, like Starbucks cups and trainers and all that kind of nonsense.
It was really good, but he was then talking about another sequence and how other sequences got changed, and how people on the internet would then draw comparisons and say it was planned all along. And he was like, yeah, I'll take credit for that.
yeah.
I planned it like that all along. It wasn't just some random thing that happened. But no, it's very funny. It's if you're listening and you're interested, go and watch it. It's very good. It's something like the problem solving of filmmaking, I think. But have a look anyway. It's good. Pony Smasher is his channel. Because he's got loads of stuff about Annabelle creation there. So I'm watching some of that after I finish the film. So, my fourth choice is The Raid.
Selamat pagi. Mungkin Anda sudah mendengar kalau kita kedatangan tamu tak diundang. Selamat bekerja. Dan jangan lupa bersenang-senang.
Okay, yeah.
Have you seen The Raid?
I have seen The Raid. It's been a very long time since I've seen The Raid.
And
oddly enough,
the other night,
it's on Netflix again. So now that you've mentioned this, I'm going to have to. Yeah, I'll have to. Now that you've spoken about it, I'm going to have to rewatch it.
And I haven't watched the second one yet either. So I was like, I'm going to go back and watch the first one. Because I watched an interesting fact video about the second one. And apparently all the crew for that, all the actors and the stunt guys who are the actors, spent 18 months training together before they actually shot the film, so that by the time they got to the shooting the film, they weren't like, if someone accidentally hits you, again, I hate to go to wrestling again, but in wrestling, if someone hits you, you give them a receipt. Okay. This might be topical because you might have seen it in Fighting With My Family recently. Paige does it when she goes to train originally. But they didn't want any of the actors doing that to each other if one of them accidentally kicked them in the face or whatever while they were doing a sequence. So, they trained together for 18 months beforehand. I was like, wow, that's crazy. So it made me want to go back and watch the first one again. And I just think it's one of the best action films.
Yeah, no, it's been
ever.
a long time since. Again, ridiculous. Bringing up this podcast has made. I think both of us, as we've discussed, have gone back and watched stuff that we wouldn't necessarily have watched, or
Yeah,
tried to find little gems that we wouldn't necessarily have done. It's forced us out of our comfort zone of, watching like 8 hours of wrestling a week. Which is difficult in of itself.
Freaking tedious.
Yeah. No.
Especially at the minute. But hey, like I say, that's another podcast.
That's another podcast we'll get to.
If you end up hearing us on that as well.
Yeah, apologies for all the wrestling talk. We will try to rein that in as we go.
It's fine. Someone will do a Venn diagram at some point. It's like Cultaholic have a Venn diagram, which is a wrestling YouTube channel. But someone has a Venn diagram for them, and it's like wrestling. Something else, dick jokes in the middle.
Sure.
And like,
I do get the feeling we won't really be aiming for dick jokes.
I'm not much of a dick joke.
No.
So sorry. I think it's really good, and it demonstrates why action films are better. And it seems like an obvious thing to say, but it's so. I haven't seen it that much when I was growing up in the 90s and the early noughties and stuff, watching films. Is actors that do their own stunts make films better, and make action sequences particular better. Like, love him or hate him, Tom Cruise is amazing for doing his own stuff. And in Mission Impossible Fallout, the sequence where he famously broke his ankle, which they left in the film, it's like one long camera shot as he's running along the roof.
Oddly enough, watched that recently again the other day, based on what you said.
I just love that sequence. It looks so good, and because he's the man running along, you haven't got to keep cutting between stunt doubles and him, and close-ups and distance shots and all that. You can just have one lovely long tracking shot as he runs across the roof and makes that jump.
See, as I've said to you
it's
about...
incredible. And the Raid is the same. They can shoot such fluid, beautiful sequences because the actors are the stuntmen.
Yeah.
So they're the ones doing the stuff at the time. And John Wick, that's the other one I thought of.
See, the now that you've said that, and obviously one that I've said to you, is the Ip Man series.
Yes, which I am going to watch.
We
will look at the life of that guy.
My
you're going
goodness.
to remind me of again.
So
what was his name?
Ip Man.
Yeah, no, the guy it's based on.
Well, he is Ip Man. That's
right. But he has a name, doesn't he?
Well, yeah, I know, but it's.
You don't remember his name?
No, not off the top of my head. No. He is. He is Ip Man. That's
Ip Man.
That's it. Master Ip, and that's the thing. I don't. I can't off the top of my head. I'm sure if I looked at my phone right now, but I'm not going to embarrass myself and do that.
No, we won't. Start
but no, that's it. He is.
It's
absolutely incredible. And Donnie Yen does an incredible job. Of that series, and again does so much of his own stunts, and incredible. Go and watch it if you haven't watched it, especially the first one. Second and third, they obviously ramp up the stunts and stuff like that, but in terms of the first one, wow. As soon as I watched that, wow, that changed my dynamic of a lot of martial arts films and things like that.
That's good, man.
But
I'd like to say I will watch those because we are gonna talk about that further down the road. Is it back to you?
Yeah, it is back to me for my fifth and final.
This is definitely going to be a two-part podcast. I'm going to tell you now because we're ticking along.
Okay, that's fine.
And I've got one more to do.
That's fine. No, that's fine. We'll have a break and then we'll record the second episode.
We'll do a second episode that is our 5 TV shows that we want to discuss.
So the final film for me, and this is one that, as soon as I think of it, just brings a smile to my face, is Guardians of the Galaxy.
Now, this is important. Once the battery is removed, everything is going to slam into emergency mode. Once we have it, we got to move quickly. So you definitely need to get that last. Or we can just get it first and improvise.
Oh, lovely.
Now, I am so in love with this film in so many different ways. The soundtrack, the acting... the way it's shot, the story, everything about this makes me happy.
I don't disagree.
I cannot express how much I love this film. It was the palate cleanser for the Marvel Universe for me. Again, being the comic book fans that we were, we knew who the Guardians were before we'd even...
Yeah, well, like you say, we sort of got in at that point when the comic books, for any that don't know, this sort of iteration of the Guardians that they based it on was based on some comics that came out of Annihilation, wasn't it?
Correct. So the Annihilation, Iron Conquest,
event.
So it spun out of that. Abnett and Lanning. So kudos to the pair of them because
because Annihilation was actually Giffen. Annihilation was actually Keith
No,
Giffen.
but as in the Guardians team, the Guardians team that actually they spawned. Yeah. They wrote that they put together is Adnan Alani, and that's where I was surveying from. But yeah, I mean the team itself was brilliantly put together. The actors were well put together. Yeah. Again, having Batista in there as a wrestling fan, that was great. Didn't know much about Chris Pratt at the time. Guy knocked it out of the park.
I hadn't seen Parks and Rec or anything.
No,
the only thing I knew, because I liked Anna Faris, was that
he was
with Anna
obviously we'd seen Zoe Saldana in loads of stuff. You know, she'd already painted herself blue for Avatar and all that kind of stuff as well. It was just the most enjoyable film for me at that point, and as I said to you many times in the past, that is my Christmas Day film. So you know what, I sit on Christmas Day once I've gone to my mum's, had my dinner, and then I go home afterwards, and that is my Christmas Day movie. Yeah, like everybody has a little kind of movie or something that they want to, that is my Christmas Day tradition. Since that's came out, I sit down, I watch that, and I have a massive smile on my face by the end.
Is that because of the film, or?
Yeah. It's
not because of anything else you're doing at the time.
No, you just wait. Where are you going? See, you go.
I was making a dick joke.
No, yeah, I was trying. I knew you were trying to do that. Like, come on, keep it clean. Yeah, I'm trying to give you my honest and loving answer for a fucking audience. You really, Jesus Christ, like, you just degrade yourself.
I'm upset,
Bav, you just degrade yourself. Jesus fucking but I love the film.
It's a brilliant film.
Obviously, knowing that
I'm sure someone would argue actually.
Yeah, I'm sure. That's the thing. Everybody argues. Everybody
and they're wrong.
Yeah, everybody has a different love for the different Marvel Universe films. Of course they do. But this one for me is the gem that will always be the shining star at the top. Yeah. It will always be my favourite one. Like, don't get me wrong. Infinity Wars and Endgames and all this and. Civil War and Winter Soldier. Yeah, okay, they're all great, but this is the shining gem for me that sits at the top of it for so many different reasons. It's my feel-good film, and knowing that James Gunn is now coming back for Part 3, yes. I was so broken-hearted when he went.
I was with Batista all the way. I was like,
I was like, I'll be pissed off.
You, Disney.
But bringing him back into the fold, I can't wait. So that's my that's my top one on that.
Oh, that's nice, good shout. So, my final choice made it onto my list. Was it last night? I think I caught it last night from partway through. Independence Day.
Who is that guy?
Put him on speaker. Pilot, identify yourself.
It's me, Russell Case, sir. I told you I wouldn't let you down.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I love
the first one? The first one? Okay, yeah.
Screw Research.
My God, I remember watching that at the cinema. Wow,
that's exactly it. I remember Wellingborough, I think it was. We're based in Northants. We're not going to be any more specific.
Yeah, I can't remember where. I think it was Northampton.
Like Wellingborough cinema, I went to watch that. But I just think it's cracking, and it's got the nostalgia factor for me now that I watched it last night, and I can't engage my critical factors. Or what is the phrase? I don't know. Faculties. Critical faculties.
You can't even get your faculties in order at the moment.
Oh dear.
Don't have a drink before you decide to do a podcast next
I've only
time.
had one beer, leave me alone.
It's a cider actually, but
I
nitpick.
can't engage my critical faculties while I'm watching it because I just like it too much, and I don't care that it's cringe-inducing at times and it's awkward and I don't care because we will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. Oh, I love it. The British in the middle of the desert receiving the Morse. The Americans, they want to organise a counterattack. It's about bloody time.
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
It completely.
And it is where Team America bases its whole thing on Americans think that all the landmarks are all in the same place.
Yeah.
Like they're all within spitting distance of each other. So they take the mickey out of that in Team America, and it's the same in this film. It's just like, oh look, Sydney Opera House, big ship crashing into it. Oh look, the pyramids. Big thing.
No, it was one of those films where it kind of back in the day. As it makes me feel old when I say this stuff.
Yeah,
but we're getting up there now. Jesus, we're middle aged.
Shut up.
Yeah, well, you've got two kids. I've got none, so I'm not worried about that.
Middle-aged. Never call us middle-aged again.
Okay. Well, we're middle-aged, but kids at heart. It's it was that point where some of the special effects and stuff started actually pushing the boat out a little bit more, and it was one of those films. It was a blockbuster film. I think that's the thing. Like, a lot of people forget. Like, they can go back and they can mock it, but I mean, every goddamn film that comes out of the cinema now has the kind of special effects now that was not available back then. That was one of those films that was a big blockbuster spectacular.
And I think it's better for the fact that it couldn't do as much, which again is a recurring theme I'm coming across these days, is that things were like Jurassic Park is amazing because there's less CG in it because they couldn't do the CG.
Yeah.
So what did they do? They built an animatronic T-Rex.
Yep.
And watching two children act against a genuine animatronic T-Rex head that is pushing in through a car roof is way more believable than the couple of kids in Jurassic World who've got to act to a fucking, what is it, a blue ball on a stick that's in front
go
of
back
them.
to the first film that we discussed on the opening of this, Star Wars. You go back and look at the models.
Brilliant.
The models for that look more realistic and more authentic than the crappy CGI that they pump out for every goddamn superhero film and every other sci-fi film that they do in this day and age. You just look at it and go, ugh, another CGI, another CGI.
It's what my daughter said when we watched when we got to the prequels was she said it looks like a cartoon. It's like, yeah, because they didn't actually film anywhere. They filmed on green screens and then just put it all in. It looks rubbish. But yeah, I watched a video the other day on Independence Day actually that showed you how, when they do the big detonation in the middle of the city and the flame sort of comes out towards you. They did that by making the miniature, tilting the miniature on its side, and then shooting an explosion upwards into the miniature, so that when you had the camera flat, it raced towards you. And I was like, yeah, that's the genius that they used to do back then.
Now it's
the only
that's just
problem
a video,
with Independence
special
Day,
effects,
because it's mostly miniatures. It's the miniatures don't. It's the green screening that hasn't held up over time. So the miniature on its own looks brilliant when it's exploding, but when you put the helicopter that's also a miniature that's exploding, that's from a different tank, that you've got to superimpose over the top of the good miniature explosion.
Yeah, it doesn't look as
that
great.
doesn't look so great.
No.
And it's those sort of things that don't stand up in it. But other than that, I just love it. Like I say, I've got a. It's nostalgia, I know, but I would defend that film.
Yeah, I mean, it's it caused the spin-off sequel a little while ago, and I watched it. It just didn't hold.
I watched it. It was too long.
It just didn't hold the same magic. And I think again, if you're gonna do it and you're gonna do a sequel to Independence Day, pony up and get Will Smith. I mean, let's face it, the guy doesn't do many decent films in this day and age.
It lacked that charisma that he had back then.
Yeah, most definitely. If they'd have brought him in and they'd have done the right storyline, it could have worked. Now, I'm not looking forward to a third part of it. I know that's what they're looking to do. Give it another 20 years and then go back and do the third part, for goodness sake.
Well, they'll just reboot it at some point.
Well, yeah, as they do with
reboot it for the new
Now.
generation. So there you go. That was Independence Day. So that's it, isn't it? That sort of brings us to the end of our list. We're about 3/4 of an hour in.
Wow, really?
So
wow, that's
I think
that was a little bit.
Probably
yeah.
Let anyone that is listening to us finish for now, and I can see that you're starting to perspire as well, and I am too because it's pretty warm.
Pretty warm. It's a pretty warm
today.
evening. It's a pretty warm evening.
We'll take this opportunity to say thank you.
Thank you very
listening.
much.
If you have listened to us, if you haven't, I don't know how you'd be hearing this to comment on the situation in the first place. So I don't know. We'll leave it at that. Join us in what will be a few minutes for us, what may be a period of weeks or months or years for you.
Yeah, if they decided they don't like part one, we may be out.
Well, that's it. I'm assuming if they listen to part one, they're not interested. They won't come back for the rest.
Yeah. I mean, understandable. I mean, we're just a couple of geeks talking
If you
films.
want to listen to this through pity, I would accept that.
Yeah,
that's absolutely fine.
Happy with that.
If you want to listen to it to then criticise it, that's fine too.
That's fine.
It's a listen, man.
We're in an age where people love to be just critics, just for the sake of being critics.
Exactly. I think I may stop short at opening a Twitter account for this though, because I don't think I can handle that. I think I'd just end up hurting people.
You're a chicken.
Well, you can run that.
No. I'm not running any goddamn social media.
You on Twitter, that'd be dangerous.
Yeah.
Anyway,
very
we're continuing on, and we're now at nearly 48 minutes. So, again, thank you very much for listening. I have been Bav.
I have been Fluff.
And this has been SCREENMASTERS.
I'm Batman.
Good luck, Harry Potter.
Well, cover me with eggs and flour and bake me for 40 minutes.